I want to start today's podcast talking about rest in a shorter NBA season. Adam Silver just days ago, addressing the media as he does around this time of the year every year, talked about potentially shortening the season. He was asked straight up. And Silver said, quote, "I'm not against it." And I thought he made some really good points. But he also felt like based on last season, he had said, hey, there were 10 fewer games and we didn't really feel like it was an impact. He said, quote, "No impact on injuries." I've talked to teams about this. With all the information that have been flying around the last few years, I think there's been more of a push. I wouldn't say 10 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. You know, the Spurs are resting guys. Remember the Warriors resting guys on a big Saturday night game. The Heat would rest players, and it kind of felt like everybody was kind of resting players to mess with each other. And then you're starting to think like, all right, I get that each team's goals are more important than anything else, but you also don't want to be a bad business partner. And there were times where it felt like the NBA wasn't a great partner on some of those Saturday night broadcasts. So some of the Thursday night broadcasts, right? Those are your marquee lineup games, Thursday and Saturday during the season when people start tuning in. And like you tune it in and you're like, wait, why are these guys resting? Because it felt like rest had gained a lot of momentum as an argument. And I don't know if that's just social media. Social media is usually a terrible barometer for how everybody really feels, but at least it felt on social media that people were very pro-rest. And of course, the players are pro-rest because guess what? Like if all of us could work less, we would work less. So I don't really blame them for doing that. But Silver, as he had said, he didn't feel like there was any impact. To be fair, you could counter that and say that last season was condensed, but players, it felt like were going down left and right during the playoffs, which feels like it's the story of every playoffs. Towards the end, it's really hard to do this, and guys go down. I've also talked to teams about this and saying, have you come up with anything? And they say, a lot of the data just feels like it's not super conclusive. So we're kind of left in this gray area of does a shortened season solve the problem? Richard Jefferson was on ESPN on NBA Today talking about this, and he went off. And to be fair to Jefferson, there's more of a lead up to that. So it wasn't just old player decides to rip current generation, which we've had plenty of. But I think he makes some really good points. And my big point about shortening the season would be this. I went back and looked at this, and I didn't make it complicated, and I'll share the numbers with you here in a second. They may say there's 82 games on the schedule. The best players aren't playing 82 games. Most of them aren't. So in a way, the season has already been shortened by them, but there's not been any legislation passed. So if you go back and look at this, and this is kind of crazy, and I want to do something simple because you go, who are the best players? Players who score points, right? Who are the stars? The guys that average the most points per game, for the most part. I think we could all agree on that without making it more difficult, more complicated to get to the exercise. So I just simply went to ESPN.com and said, okay, who are the top 25 leading scorers, points per game, in the 21-22 season. And so it doesn't include qualifying because that's not what I wanted. I wanted the players that score the most points and then tabulate how many total games those top 25 scorers have missed. It's 567 games missed this year from your top 25 scorers in the NBA. That's an average of just under 23 missed games per player in the top 25 scorers list. I couldn't believe it. When I looked at the number, I'm like, that's crazy. That's almost 25% of the season. It's actually more. So then I go, okay, well, let's go back and look at something. So I went back and looked at 2011, and I looked at the top 25 scorers. Like, how many total games did they miss? 170 games. An average of just under 7 missed games per player in that top 25 list. You're thinking like, okay, Russillo, that's ancient times. It was 11 years ago because I didn't want to do the other season because it was shortened. So here's the deal. I went back just 5 years ago. Again, top 25 scorers, points per game. They missed on average 6.24 games per player in that top 25 list. So in 5 years, it went from 6 games missed to just under 23 games missed. The NBA season is already shorter. There's 82 games. They're just playing less. Now, to counter this, could I say, well, we're on year 3 of a really weird stretch here because of an interrupted season, an extended season, a shortened season that was crammed, and then a season here that started a little bit earlier. But, when I think about some of the arguments around this, I wonder how much people are really paying attention. And it's not like I feel like all these injuries have been avoided. So what are we really talking about? Now, I don't know too many businesses that want to sell less of their product when their product is being paid for. And with the NBA right now, with the TV rights, we want to look at the escalation of that over the last few years. It's incredible and good for them. If you go back to 1998 to 2002, that NBA deal was a total of $615 million. From 2002 to 2008, that deal with ESPN and TNT, once it left NBC, was $765 million. From 2008 to 2016, the deal averaged $930 million for television. And then that was the big ESPN deal with TNT, where in 2016, it was announced that the TV package was going to average about $2.75 billion. All right. So they went ahead and tripled it, and people freaked. I was at ESPN at the time. A lot of people going, what the hell is John Skipper doing? And you know what? He got it right. He was right on this one. He nailed it. And of course, whenever rights fees are paid like this, people start worrying about their jobs. And there were layoffs fairly shortly after that was announced. So the new number that's being rumored is that the total deal that was about $24 billion that's going to expire here in 2025, that the new deal could be worth $75 billion in total. Now, I don't know if that number is real or not. It's been floated out there for a while. It feels like it could be a little bit like the Scott Boras move, where you just float an absurd number where you're like, Bryce Harper is iconic and could be worth $1 billion. And you're like, man, $1 billion. And then you get somebody for $500 million and you think you got some kind of discount. And again, Harper didn't make $500 million, but you get the point. He does it all the time. People float the number, the media freaks out. And then you almost feel like you won because you get to overpay for somebody because you didn't pay as much as the early rumored numbers. So I don't know if $75 billion is going to happen. I don't know if it's a tactic, but we know that the TV rights are going to keep going up, because until something else happens that gets a live audience that can compete with sports, I don't know when the TV rights numbers are going to go down. I'm not rooting for them to go down, by the way, either. What do I care? I hope everybody makes their money, right? And that also means the cap is going to go up. And I don't know if we'll see a smoothing of the cap this time around, opposite of what happened before where there was a cap spike. I don't know the answers to these things. All I do know is that live rights, even if traditional ratings go down, it doesn't matter, because if your live rights pie is still mostly sports, it becomes that much more valuable because of so many different ways that we consume television. All right. Pretty basic stuff there. The other part of this is that the NBA was dealing with some rating stuff for a little while, right? I never like looking at ratings year to year, and sometimes even in a couple year dip, and thinking that you can come to some massive conclusion off of that, right? The NFL was down for a little while. People came up with a million different theories. Turns out none of those theories were impactful enough to really derail what is the NFL rating strength. And for the NBA right now, this is the most watched playoffs since 2014. All signs point to the NBA doing really well with this deal. Now, why am I bringing up money and all the TV rights? Because that's the whole point of this thing. We can talk about shortening a season, which, as I've pointed out here, has already happened with these players. I mean, think about this. There are 20 of 25 players in that top 25 scoring list that have missed more than 10 games. Only 2 players in 2017 on that top 20 scoring list missed more than 10. So these are the best players. But until the money is screwed up, nothing happens. The money is not getting screwed up. That's why I bring up the ratings. So you can turn on your TV and miss out on your favorite guy. You can buy a ticket and your guy's not playing in that game. But when the rights fee is going up, there's no urgency to really change anything. And I think Silver wants to be protective of that relationship with the players, which is different than the Stern relationship. All right. And I think that's a credit to him. But I also think there are times, too, where people are like, what is going on? But again, when the money is right, and the money is right for these TV deals, I don't know that anyone's really going to care. There's something funny in my business, right? Where they'll say, as you get more successful, you get paid more to do less. Maybe I don't want to work all summer. Maybe I don't want to do 5 shows a week. Maybe I don't want to do all these extra things. Although it can seem like times guys in broadcasting do as many different things as they can. But ultimately, there becomes this goal of, is there a way I can find a way to get paid more to work less? And right now, no one in sports gets paid more to do less than the NBA stars.